Welcome to the Own Your Best Life podcast. I'm May Emson, your host, leadership and mindset coach. Here, we talk all things spiritual, mindset, business, leadership, and wellness for the modern seeker who wants to align their life with purpose and inspiration. We'll cover career changes, stress management, meditation, energy, intuition, and more. Each episode holds spiritual and practical tools to help you live a life of your wildest dreams without getting burnt out along the way. Ready to live a life on your own terms? This is the Own Your Best Life podcast. All right, so welcome, friends, to episode number 146 of the Own Your Best Life podcast. I'm really excited to be doing this podcast today. I'm going to be sharing with you a conversation with Jenni, and Jenni's been a client of mine and also a friend since undergrad. And a little background about who Jenni is. She is a research senior principal at one of the world's largest professional service companies. You probably know their name. She publishes thought leadership reports that target C-level audiences in markets outside of the US and Europe on pressing topics such as how to accelerate private sector growth in the developing green economy. And she's also spent 15 years as a technology consultant, helping multinational companies in the US, Singapore, and Australia to implement large-scale IT systems. And today she lives in Singapore with her husband and their daughter. And on a much more personal note, she has been on a journey of self-inquiry since 2019. And that has led to both wonderful breakdowns and a series of breakthroughs as well. And how Jenni is learning to find herself again will be the topic for today's conversation. So welcome, Jenni. So happy to have you on.
Hi, thank you. Excited to be here.
All right. So this has been a while in the making. I think that as you have grown your voice and moved into thought leadership and really own the journey that you've been on, you've started sharing more publicly to friends, to family about the process that you've embarked on and some of your learning. So I think this is great for anyone out there who is on that cusp of thinking about life in a very different way, of having deeper conversations, of really starting to become a lot more introspective and wondering, am I on the right path? What am I doing here? Is this the right thing for me? So excited again. And let's start. One of the things I always love to give people a little brief on, they know where you are now, and it's of course amazing, but how did you actually get to where you are now in your career and life? What was your own journey? And I think it's really helpful for people to hear other people's paths as well.
Yeah, thank you. So I'll answer that question less philosophically and more just kind of how I got to where I am physically.
Yeah.
So I was, in fact, born in Shanghai, China, and immigrated to the United States when I was 4 years old, to Maryland. And I was an only child. And because my parents were first generation immigrants trying to make a living, I had a lot of time on my own. And so growing up as a kid, there was not a lot of structure, let's say, or leadership at home. So I really enjoyed and welcomed the structure that I would find in school, by going, taking piano lessons, and things that were outside of the home. So, I grew up loving math and science, going to a magnet program for middle school and high school, that really made me question whether I wanted to be a scientist or wanted to be a doctor. But when I did dabble in those fields in a kind of a laboratory setting, I decided that I'm probably more in the applied side of things. So I didn't get into the schools of my choice for undergrad, but I did get into University of Maryland, which is also where my dad went, and I had luckily a full scholarship to go there. So, and friends who were going to go there too. So I ended up, going to school and kind of switching gears from searching for passion to very practically, what are the degrees that I could get that would open up my options if I didn't know what I wanted to do. So, going to University of Maryland, I decided to go for the business school and the computer science school because they were the most reputable. So I got double degrees in finance and computer science. Now, do I use any of those skills today? Not very much, but I went very practically for those things. And then when I graduated, I was just looking for options that would give me flexibility to travel. So it was never really the content of the work that I was looking at. I wasn't pursuing a particular passion for a subject. So at that time, the consulting firms were the best places to go. And so I joined the one that gave me the highest offer as an entry level. And
Yeah.
that kind of launched my journey out of Maryland and traveling for assignments. And how I came to Singapore, in fact, was, in the third year as a consultant, I just really wanted to move away and try to work back in Asia. And since I'm from China, I said, I wanted to try and find a role in Shanghai maybe. And I got the call to say, we don't have anything in China, but there's a huge opportunity in Singapore for an Australian client. It's a multinational, and would you like to come as an expat? So that was a big yes for adventure at the time. So I was in my mid-20s. I came here for the assignment, and then very fortunately met my husband, who was a colleague in the same company, and I guess the rest is history. So that's how I got to Singapore.
I love that story.
Yeah.
I love it. You know what's interesting? I didn't actually know that you didn't get into your colleges of choice.
Yeah.
And that's why you're at Maryland, because that was the same for me. I actually was thought like, oh, Maryland was a safety school
Yeah.
and I had all these other schools. But what that really highlighted to me in that process, it really changed the trajectory of the way I thought about my career and how intentional I was then about like the next steps afterwards.
Mm.
So I'm curious for you, actually, when that happened for you, how did that help you?
Mm. I have to say that that was definitely a small wake-up call, in the sense that I mentioned earlier that I did really well in school because it gave me the structure and I knew what to do to get the good grades. There
Yeah.
was a point, however, that I was aiming more for the grade or aiming more for the outcome at the expense of how I got there. And so
Mm.
had I gotten into the schools of my choice, I think it
Yeah.
would have just rewarded that kind
Mm.
of behavior. But because I didn't, and I had to kind of rethink a little bit and just, decide to make the best out of what I had, which was actually amazing. A full scholarship, people paid me to go to school. I mean, it's not a
Yeah.
it's not a bad deal, but it was still kind of like hmm, maybe what I was doing is not quite working, and maybe I need to not. I mean, for many years thereafter, I was still very focused on practical achievements, but it was still the first kind of blip in my journey where I started to question what I was doing to get to success, or what success meant.
Yes.
Mm,
Yeah. I got chills listening to that because I think it's so true that sometimes we feel so disappointed
mm,
by not getting what we want. And then in hindsight, we realize that there was a reason that it didn't work and that it showed us that the way that we were doing it probably wasn't the sustainable thing. And we have choices about whether to listen to that or not, right? That's why we have multiple wake up calls. But I
Yep.
actually thought for me, that was like the best thing for me.
Mm,
Because I think that similar to you, there was a story already of like, of course, you're going to go to all these Ivy League
mm,
schools. You have everything that you need to get in. And what I realized was I wasn't doing the deep intentional work of really thinking about what I wanted from the school. It was just like
Yeah,
almost like an afterthought for me. But
you're
then, of
right. And
course, I saw so many things afterwards that ended up working out so much better because I was there.
so what you just said made me recall that on paper, I felt like I was a really good applicant. But I wonder, these people, the screening, I don't know how it works, but I'm assuming that they read so many of these essays that when it feels more like a facade versus something that is very deeply intentional, I wonder whether it does still come out a little bit. And not that I was disingenuine, but I do feel like having not gotten in, similar to you, I decide, I looked and I'm like, maybe it's because I didn't quite know what I was wanting from the school. Like it wasn't a deep connection. It was the brand or the status or whatever it was,
Yeah.
more than,
Yeah. Yeah. And when I applied to do my MBAs, I remember I spent a lot of time on my story and who I was, and just like all these little pieces that made me who I was, and thought about them actually, right? And got intentional
mm,
and created like a 5-year plan. And I think it went so deep that it really helped, right, with the application process,
mm,
that there were multiple offers, but at the same time, it ended up being what I executed again. So it was almost
mm,
like this, this isn't going to work this way because you didn't do the deep work and you kind of need to do some of that. I
mm,
also met my husband, right, Jay, through
yeah,
going to Maryland. I'm pretty sure I wouldn't have done the same kind of things if I went to another school, but who knows? I'm sure we
yeah,
would have found each other. But then I made a ton of friendships, right? Like
yeah,
even with you that have
yeah,
changed so many things for me. So, anyways,
yeah,
that was a bit of a detour, but I think it's interesting because I think for many achievers, having your eyes set on something and really wanting it and then not getting it can feel like such a failure. And I
mm,
think that there are so many people that resonate with whether it was this or something else, another situation that could have been that thing that felt was the thing you should have done.
yeah,
And I think it's actually really opened my eyes to saying that, we should reduce the shame around failures and not getting into places or the jobs or the opportunities that we thought were for us. But it doesn't mean
mm,
we stop trying, but it
yeah,
also doesn't mean that we can't, shift the way we think about it and actually have it work out for us even better as a result. So, yeah,
mm,
love that.
mm,
All right. So tell us a little bit about why coaching, right? How did you get to this place where you decided that you wanted to do coaching and the inspiration there? Because I think for many folks, I'll talk to people who always knew they were going to get coaching because they've seen themselves as like an executive, or founding or leading a company. And they just know that that's what people do. They read a lot of biographies and they find out that all these people had coaches and they should have a coach too.
mm,
But not everyone is like that, right? Some people aren't sure of if they want that trajectory or what they want as well. So, what was your story and how did you think about your goals as you thought about coaching?
mm. Growing up, as I mentioned, because of the environment and because I was alone a lot, I was always quite hyper independent, sorry. So I typically would find ways to figure things out for myself. And, my goalposts, even into my late 20s and 30s, it felt like I was doing all the things that were supported by the systems around me as being good, right? So, yes, I found my husband. And by the way, he's a great guy, right? And yes, I got
Yeah.
married before I was 30. And then, yes, I have a child now in my 30s, right? So, um, but in the background, also because I had found so much of my identity through achievement through school, that
Yeah.
also translated to work. Now,
Mm.
I have had a very wonderful and colorful career at my company, um, but there were transitions in which over time I always felt like I was getting good at something and then wanting to move to the next thing. Like I never really, but then wanting to move to the next thing was always attached to what was expected. Like I should be a certain level at this time. I should be pushing for a promotion at this time. So I was kind of just part of this, whether you call it a rat race or the system, or I just never really questioned, right?
Yeah.
Um, but actually, under the surface, um, I didn't know what to label at the time, but there was always, whenever I was on a stressful assignment or whatever, sometimes I would feel heart palpitations, and I didn't label it as
Mm.
anxiety. I thought I had heart problems. So I would go to the doctor for the physical thing, and they say, you're fine. So
Yeah.
there were kind of small little wake-up calls that when I was in a stressful situation, I would probably push myself a little too hard. But then I would generally be able to succeed. I've always been able to just like grit my teeth and just power through, right? Do the
Yeah.
overnights or 48 hours not sleeping,
Yeah.
to get something done, and I would get it done. So I was still rewarded by that kind of behavior. Now, it's a long story to how I got to coaching, but there was a point after I came back from maternity leave, and I went back and I intellectually thought that, or cognitively thought that I wanted the same things I had wanted before I went on leave. So I
Yeah.
told everybody, I told everyone I wanted to be promoted, I wanted the big job,
Yeah.
but I didn't really. Like that
Yeah.
wasn't for me. And so when I was put in a situation where it was the role was way too big for what I was able to take in,
Yeah.
I just crashed. It was and I just knew I needed help. So it, it was a period of 2 to 3 months in which I slowly, got to the point where I remember this moment where I was just crouched down in my living room in this beautiful home that I built with beautiful family and people who love me. But I was just crouched down like in a tiny little ball. I closed my eyes and I really felt this like swirling black hole feeling of lost. Like, how do I get out? Like, I'm not happy at work. I'm not taking care of my health. How do I get out of
Yeah.
this? And you know, I I think I was diagnosed with clinical depression after I went to acute clinical depression after I went to a general practitioner. But I
Yeah.
just knew I needed help. So that moment kind of started to turn into this, even though it was very painful, like I made the call to find a counselor. I started
Yeah.
to look at, psychologists, people medical professionals
Yeah.
who be trained. But then when it came to coaching, um, the honest answer is that I felt like there were synchronicities between you and I. Like you were on Instagram by then. This was, I think, a couple years since you had started your own journey to become a coach. And I was learning from these, like, interviewing these therapists about my problems, and codependency came up as one of the topics. And that happened to be something that you just were posting about at the time.
Yeah.
And, I was really just in the space where it's like, I knew I needed help. These new people, these professionals, I didn't really know them. But then
Yeah.
May, I know May. I
Yes.
trust May, like we've known each other since college. We've been to each other's weddings, and
Yeah.
if she's going into this space, if it's just even to just get you to just be part of this journey to like, because you also know me. And so it's
Yeah.
nice. I think there's something really special, by the way, just to see each other grow. Like you're still the same person, like you're still the
Yeah.
grounded, calming, non-judgmental friend since like college days, but then there's just something more, like we're both kind of growing in different ways and together. And
Yeah.
it's so that's why I had no idea what to expect. Then, and like when I first reached out, this was for the first year that we worked together,
Yeah.
it was so basic, right? I am sure you remember. It's like coaching, I've come to appreciate is when you have your own goals, it's especially helpful. But
Yes.
when I was in that space of being so lost, like I didn't even know what my values were, right? So
Yeah.
I think what I took away from the first part of our coaching relationship was just you playing back to me my own voice, like my intuition, like, I'm excited about this because you sound excited, Jenni. I'm like, yeah, that's a good reason to be excited.
Yeah.
Right. And I had lost so much, like it was like I had gotten to such a bad place where I just didn't know what I wanted.
Yeah.
And so from that space, something like coaching was very helpful. So that was my very long preamble.
Yeah. Yes. And I love that because I think that I was just thinking this morning how the theme across so many of my clients is really developing self trust, right? Developing their own intuition and self reliance, and how coaching is such a perfect tool for something that feels sometimes very nebulous, like this intuitive nudge. Like, how do I, like, what does that even mean? Or how do I even start to feel that I know what intuition is or that I have intuition? And I think that I had even remembered this is how I knew, and even in my own journey, I knew when I found coaching, I was like, oh, this is the thing for me because it just put together so many of the things that I was already interested in and doing
Mm,
non professionally already. And I remember even another friend, she had started dating someone and she was like, she kept asking me, like, do you like him? Do you like him? And I remember thinking, well, I mean, I guess I just met him and he seems fine or okay. And I had that moment where I said to her, if you tell me he's amazing, I'm going to think he's amazing
mm,
because you're the one in the relationship with him. Obviously, there may be huge red flags that I think many people would
mm,
automatically know. But usually we know those things, and that's not the level of intuition we're looking to develop. We're looking for the like finesse where we're like, it's not so clear. It's not like
mm.
black or white. Like, yes, stop doing this. It's terrible. And you know it. It's usually
Yeah.
the like, I'm slowly boiling, right,
Mm,
in the hot
mm,
water, and I'm not sure, but there's something that I'm picking up on. And
mm,
I'm starting to realize like where my temperature is for different situations or people or decisions, right? Do I feel good about this? Do I not feel good about it? And then starting to trust that as well. So yeah, for sure. I think that intuitive thing
mm,
has become so much of what we do together. And it's also an amazing way for coaching to come through because I always say to my clients too, at the same time, like, if I figure this out, I will grow my own value and
mm.
my own intuition
Yeah.
about what's right or wrong or what makes most sense. But when you do it, you grow your own bank, right? Of
Yeah.
knowledge, of wisdom, of value, and you grow your own capacity as well to do
Yeah.
bigger, harder things that feel more confusing.
Well, what I will say, I was also thinking about this topic of coaching, particularly in terms of kind of life coaching, kind of non-specific, not related to sports or music or some sort of skills-based hard skills that
Yeah.
typically people get coaching on. Um, and I think I was always intrigued by this idea of having a life coach because I had spoken to some senior people, as you had said, as senior corporate leaders who said that they had lost their way, and one of the things that they did was work with a coach. So that also made me like open my mind in terms of what are the kinds of coaches that are out there. And
Yeah.
I just think about there's so many hard things in life that you have to deal with every day that actually having a coach is just really helpful. It doesn't have to be taking piano lessons, right? Or like doing a sport. It, you know,
Yeah.
listening to your intuition is a great place to get coached.
Yeah, for sure. Okay. So then let's talk about your career, because I think you've had such a variety of experiences. And I think for a lot of people, they're trying to figure out, who am I now that I've done all of these things? What have I learned? And how do I think about what's next through that lens? So when you think about your own career and who you are, what have you learned?
So this is only on reflection. The reality that I had created for myself and the expectations that other people had of me in my career. I mean, I was, of course, relatively successful and I got things. It wasn't that there was no failure or whatever, but in general, I was considered a high performer. I would get things done. I can go and recover other people's messes,
Yeah.
even though I don't like to do that work. But that reality of expectation, I realized, was created by the yeses I said. Like
Yeah.
when I said yeses, even though I meant no, when I decided to prioritize somebody else's, requirement of my time versus what I actually wanted to do. Every time I said that, that kind of built that expectation of what Jenni, of course she likes to do this, right? I'm also reminded, even in a personal sphere, like I enjoy planning trips for the family, but I don't like it when it's expected of me. I enjoy it when it's something that I want to do. But since, when I started to plan it just automatically as if somebody was expecting me to do it, people just naturally just here, of course Jenni will do it. And then I
Yes.
realized that actually no, I need to be more clear that I don't want to do it all the time. And so even in my career, I think the lesson learned is I think the boundary setting is probably the most relatable word, but kind of the deeper way I see it is when am I saying yes to something where like I feel some sort of resentment, and I pay attention to that much more
Yeah.
nowadays. Um, and learning to spot where there is an emotional or cognitive dissonance,
Yeah.
whether it's at work, how I spend my time. Like, for example, I really just can't get myself to rush out a pack of slides. I mean, I can do it one time in a blue moon, like, but just because somebody says I need it by 11:30 p.m. and there's no real, it's just this kind of a false urgency. I just can't get myself to say yes to those type of assignments anymore, or
Yeah.
like, waking up at odd times to do something. But I used to say yes. So, um, yeah, I think those in terms of my career, that is definitely a lesson learned as I started to find kind of the roles where it really brought me more joy, and alignment than not. Mm.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that you take that wherever you go. So
Mm.
sometimes we try to exit roles or jobs because of all the yeses that we've said. And then we don't realize that we go into the next thing and we keep saying yes again. And suddenly we get the same situation that has occurred. And we're wondering, like, how did I get myself into this hole? And I really like what you were saying about how you notice how you felt resentment, right? Because I think many times when we say yes and we feel resentment, then we know it's that people pleasing,
Mm.
sometimes codependent
Mm.
type of behavior
Mm.
versus I want to do this
Mm.
and I'm happy to continue working on this extra or wake up at this time, but it feels very different. I don't have that resentment. I
Yeah.
might not even like love it, but I feel that I've made a choice, right? And so it's almost like the thought is that I've chosen this versus I have to do this. I
Yeah.
should do this.
Yeah. Or you
Right.
made me, or
Yeah.
I don't know, the system is, I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah. And so from an energetic perspective, I almost see it as like you lose energy when you do that because you're kind of like moving forward, but you've like tied a weight to it.
Mm,
So you're still going to do the thing, but you've added an
mm,
additional way, which is the resistance to doing it, which could
mm.
either come from you saying and thinking, I don't actually want to do it, or you actually knowing you shouldn't be doing it and then not doing anything about it, right? And having that feeling sit with you as you start to do all the work versus just being very clean and saying, okay, if I'm going to do this and I know I'm not willing and don't want to rock the boat here, and I've made a clear choice, well, let's just get it done. And I think that actually beats so much of the procrastination that
Yeah.
occurs for so many people, right? Versus the like, okay, really, I'm just going to say no to this because I actually can. And that's
Mm.
going to be uncomfortable, but at least I'll be practicing that muscle of aligning my energy and my yeses to the things that make the most sense. Cause then I don't have an
Yeah.
excuse to say, well, I don't love this part of my job because I don't say anything about it or I don't do anything about it.
Well, another reflection I had, similar to this idea that, it was actually my choice to get into these
Yeah.
situations, is that, I do work there's a reason why I've been at the same company for, 16, 17 years. So there's a
Yeah.
lot of good there. And part of it is because it gives you so much freedom,
Yeah.
right? It's like when I went back after mat leave and I told my leaders that I wanted a big job, I mean, why wouldn't they have believed me? Now, in hindsight, I would say that it would have been nice because they didn't happen to have gone through the motherhood journey. They were all fathers, right? So I would say that it would have been nice to have had a mentor, not to
Yes.
question my choice, but just to prompt
Yes.
a deeper introspection, because they would have gone through and would have maybe given me some more wisdom. I don't know if anyone questioned my choice to say I want the big role. I think my ego would have reacted at the time. I wouldn't have been ready to hear that.
Yeah.
But just having someone there, even like a coach, would have been great. Now, what I wanted to say is that in such a in companies where they do give you that freedom or flexibility to, like, well, if you want to do this, we'll give you the opportunity. And there's so much around inclusion diversity these days. um, what I realize is at the end, so I've obviously stumbled here and there, made some choices that I wasn't super happy about. um, but over time, I think, especially through coaching with you, I love this idea of a miracles mindset. It's like, what if everything was working for me? Like I had to go through, it would have been a different way, a different timing if I hadn't taken on that particular big role, but it
Yeah.
would have had to happen, right?
Yeah.
And it's kind of great that, the support network, the professional network that I had brought, or that I had built over the years, um, they saw me kind of fail here and there, but they're still colleagues, and I think I could still work with them or for them. And, I was able to still find a role within the organization, where I am a valued contributor, despite people having seen my meander.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. And I think there's so many good things there. That you work at a place that said yes when you said yes and
yeah,
didn't play on the motherhood bias and said, no, what about, your kids? Shouldn't you be home with them? Which, is a thing and can also go the opposite way for some folks where they're
yeah,
just like, I'm not supported here. But I think to your point, sometimes when I think about coaching and my why, because I've had similar experiences where my capacity had not grown to the demands of the role or the work that I needed to do. And when I didn't get that support, your mental health takes a huge toll for people who are super highly functioning and
yeah.
generally, thriving in life. And
Mm.
I always think if I could catch people before they get to that point, then they would
Yeah.
enjoy the journey so much more. Like I think back, and when you talk about that miracle mindset, I think it just erases all of the regret, right? Like,
Mm.
oh, I should have done this or I should have done that. You kind of mine all of that for the wisdom. It's like oh, I didn't get into the school I wanted in the beginning. It was like such a like heartbreak or disappointment or embarrassment, whatever it felt like then. But then you start almost flying that flag and being like, see, I didn't get into my first choice. And life was amazing
Amazing.
still. And being able then to say, like, maybe there are like infinite ways,
Mm.
infinite, and many, many, many like parallel universes that we get to step into, that it almost becomes way more fun. And
Mm.
really, the only thing missing, right, was just being like, wait, I could actually get help to make this more fun, right? Like I
Yeah.
could do something differently. And it's not that you should have known or we should have known, but through those experiences, I think I do way harder and bigger things now that require so much more kind of mental work and bravery or courage,
Mm.
that if I went back and did the same thing, I would just be like, well, like, this is
This is fun.
so simple, and like I would not take it as seriously. But I remember people being like, just don't answer the emails, it'll be fine. And I'm like, how do you not respond to people, right? How do you not just answer the piles of requests that are constantly coming through? And I
Yeah.
think that we all think that the magic bullet is just like some system, and trust me, I that's how I knew it wasn't, because I studied like every single like productivity system out there and routine that I could implement. And it just wasn't enough. And that's when I knew that it was the internal work. And that's when I
Mm.
knew that it was the structural situation too.
Mm.
And like that then becomes such a, I would say, like a relief when you realize, oh, maybe this is just not for me right now, because I don't want to have this kind of work intensity, and I'm not going to change the way that the work is. But I could
Yeah.
have spent maybe less time fighting it
Yeah.
and feeling like a failure when really I was succeeding, right? And then getting to a place where your mental health takes a massive toll, right? And things start to suffer right in your life.
Yeah. And I think part of it is also just at least personally, my upbringing, right? There was a lot of resonance a few years ago about this idea of grit, and there was, of course, TED Talks about grit, and the
Yes.
first time I heard it, I was like, yes, grit. But as I've gone on this self-inquiry journey, I realized, yes, grit, but first alignment, right? First,
Yeah.
it's like you got to know your body will start to tell you like this is not for you, right? You're breaking down. You don't have to stay there and keep on trying. You can just take yourself and remove yourself from the situation that's not for you and do gritty some things like somewhere else. Like I can do gritty things in my thought leadership role that I enjoy so much more.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you have been really successful in coaching. I think you're pretty highly coachable. So, what do you think was the difference for you that helped you see? Because I don't think people are aware of like so many of the internal transformations that you've had. Like, what do you think you did that actually helped you succeed even more on that journey of self inquiry?
I think you're right, to the point about being coachable, right? I think at some point I just became this open vessel of just, I'll read anything. I'll do
Yeah.
anything, right? So, and when there was that open-hearted, open-minded willingness to just accept that there's got to be a better way or a different way, and then I happened to be very lucky to have found the people that I resonate with, including yourself, including my therapist, including amazing friends and family, and books, lots of books, podcasts, Instagram accounts, where as I started to build my own voice, build it back up,
Yeah.
I would notice where it would resonate with a particular voice. And one of the big topics underlying all of this is parenting, right? Wanting to be
Hmm.
a parent in a very modern, respectful way, not using the kind of the draconian measures that maybe a lot of us grew up with, and realizing that I didn't necessarily have the experiential knowledge of how that felt like, because that's not necessarily how I was raised.
Yeah.
And so I was always on the lookout. Like, it was such a pressing topic because my child, Lily, my daughter, she's a toddler, formative years, 2, 3, 4, 5. I need to make sure that I'm prepared. And so that was also a huge catalyst for me to go and look for external help.
Yeah.
A- and I think the game changer, there's that. And personally, I think I just having these little mantras, right? Like things that just pop into my mind because, what if this is all for you? Or what's for you is never going to miss you, and like, because I read so much, those little nuggets would help me keep me on
Yeah.
track. Mm.
Yeah. I think that finding your why that's outside of you is such a resonant topic. I think so many of the people I work with do have kids, or they want to have kids, or they think about the way that their life affects so many other people, right?
Mm.
Maybe they are a leader, right? And they want to be a certain kind of leader.
Mm.
And it's such a great way to get us out of our heads and just
Mm.
into forward movement, because
Yeah.
sometimes it feels selfish, right? To be spending time thinking about these things or for ourselves when we've spent so much of our lives just in the like action mode and just get it done, just do it, just power through, which is why like the grit thing for so many achievers, they're like, I already got the grit. Like I will hold on to anything tight. And that was my story too. I remember
Yeah.
literally I was in high school we had some massive outdoor setup, and you had to do this like kind of rock climbing thing up a wall. And I kid you not, I was like on that wall for like 45 minutes and I just like hung on and kept going. And I don't know what I thought I was supposed to do or not do, but I like couldn't reach, but I was still trying. And I remember the gym teacher afterwards was just like, holy moly. He's like, and I remember this because now I think one adult can affect someone's life with what they say in positive ways too. He was
Hmm.
like, I hope that I one day have a daughter like you. And I
Oh.
remember just being like, oh, like there's something there. And I remember so much of that early success was just through hanging in there, just like keeping on going for it when you have no business to be doing whatever you're doing. You have the audacity to even try and to keep going. But then there does get to be a point where you realize, wait, I know that I have that. Like I don't have to prove it to myself anymore that I can work hard, that I'll get it done, that I'll do the work. Now I just need to decide like where I want to point all of that energy, just like you said, having that alignment first and saying, I have a
Yeah.
massive amount to give and even more than I probably need to if I'm really behind it. And if I'm like fully locked and loaded, sometimes we think
Yeah.
about it in through the energy centers or really like our mind, our heart, right? And our hands, then watch out. You will just hang in there and you'll keep going, even when other
Yeah.
people will stop. So I think
Well,
that like that shift is so huge.
this is a bonus because this just this past 3-minute segment felt like a coaching session because I realized, I think we've had this conversation too. It's like
Yeah.
when, because I've kind of chosen to like choose a little bit of a different path or try something different, I do realize that it's like I remember those moments where I could just do anything, even if I didn't need to do the thing, I could do the thing. But I'm finding it challenging in this middle ground when I'm still looking. I mean, I'm kind of there, but not all the way there. It's like looking for the place where I would really just focus that grit that I know I am capable of. And
Yeah.
where do I like unleash it on in the direction in which it's aligned to whatever I decide is what I want to really have. And that's, beyond what other people expect of me, but what I want. Like,
Yeah.
I can't wait to find it.
Yes. Yeah. And
Yeah.
that's part of the journey too, right? And I
Yeah.
feel sometimes people try to rush and they're like, I want the thing only versus like, how about we start and gain so much confidence that we
Mm,
have it, that it's
mm,
available. And that
mm,
helps for many people that I work with. They have a lot going on in their lives through
mm,
either personal or professional. And really, when you have that sense of confidence about who you are, we even did, right? We did your strengths assessments a couple
mm,
different times,
mm,
what you're capable of, and really just getting that in your bones where you're like, I am a rock star. I am in the top 1 or 10% of anything that I really put my mind into.
mm.
Then it makes what your current life situation is open up and create so much more space, so much more time, so
Mm,
much more energy. It feels easier to do what you have now so that when you start to think about that next thing, you
mm,
feel like there are pockets of time and energy that you can start devoting to exploring, right? What that
yeah,
looks like. How does that align even more? So for
yeah,
you, you've already made one big shift
mm,
towards that direction through doing thought leadership work, right? From
mm,
doing like consultant role to more thought leadership.
mm.
So, and I think for a lot of people, that term is like so big and everyone is like, I want to be a thought leader. And I remember I was just at a mastermind with another coach and I was talking about it because in my mind it's very clear what I think thought leadership is. And she was like, she's a very successful coach. She was like, wait, what do you think it is? Because I think it's so important and I want to have it too. And then here you are doing this kind of thought leadership work, which really is this meta version of you finding yourself and finding
Yeah.
your voice and living more out loud. And you're doing it in a space where you don't always know everything about everything, right? Because the topics are so broad. So, how do you think about thought leadership, the kind of work you do, and creating
Mm.
content and supporting these kind of initiatives on a variety of topics, some of which you have expertise on, and some of which isn't your personal passion or domain?
Yeah. I think when I happened into this role, I was very lucky, and it happened to be during COVID times when my company had to publish very quickly points of views around the pandemic, especially since Asia was first to go through it. So there was a very genuine and important perspective to share with the world. And that's when I was called to help on a project, and the project being publishing a point of view. And so, without understanding very much about the what it takes to be in a thought leadership space, it started as simply applying my skills in ways that I enjoyed. So it was, critically reading through a document and asking questions where the logic or argument was not there, or running interviews and asking interesting like experts these questions about what they thought about certain topics without having to be an expert at all myself, just
Yeah.
learning from experts, right? Which lights me up hugely because I just love listening to other people's stories. um, and so gradually when I finally got the opportunity to step officially into the role, it did feel like huge shoes to fill because, as you say, right, if I'm going to write about corporate strategy and developing the green economy, am I really an expert? Am I a sustainability or ESG or any sort of corporate strategist? Not necessarily. But what I have learned to find confidence in is that, of course, I'm working with a team and others who are much more seasoned, and so I see myself as helping other thought leaders sharpen their ideas, right? So there's always
Yeah.
value in what I can bring to the table, which is my critical thinking, my questioning of ideas, And maybe that's the fundamental thing about being a thought leader, is never to be too confident with an idea and decide that you are the thought leader. I think thought leaders, the best ones out there, even in the ones in the, let's say, psychology or social spaces that I follow, organizational psychology, whether it's an Adam Grant or a Brene Brown or Esther Perel, like, I consider them to be thought leaders, and
Yeah.
they're constantly updating what they believe to be true, right? So it helps me feel valuable when I say I am learning to be a thought leader. And I
Yeah.
also support projects that put thought leadership out there. And it's a huge team effort. But each time we have a project, you know, to help fill some of those knowledge gaps is actually because we go and gather primary data, or we do the research and we look at the data and analyze it, and we then back up our hypotheses. Like, there's a process around it. So,
Yeah.
and another thing I am realizing in the past year is that a lot of my current journey is, I'm here kind of to learn the process and trust the process of learning the process.
Yes.
Right. And eventually, I'm sure there will be topics. I do notice, I'm very interested in anything people related, talent related topics, and it is a huge topic.
Yeah.
Social mobility is a huge topic. Youth is a huge topic. And I notice that as I'm working on topics that may or may not be aligned to the content that I'm very personally curious about, slowly I will get that opportunity. And hopefully by the time the opportunity presents itself, I will be ready to seize it.
Yes. Yeah. I had a thought for you that you are also a thought leader on thought leadership.
Oh, well, thank you. I didn't
Because
think
I
of it
think
that way.
one of the things that you've already done, and I know this because I work with her, um, and she's told me these things, is that you bring more rigor, right, and
Mm,
more structure to the process itself
mm,
that is creating almost like a new way of doing, even the way you manage your teams. We're going to talk about that too.
mm,
But I think that many people just kind of go in with just like, they just get into the thing itself. And
mm,
you are in this nice place where you're balancing both. Like, you have that kind of perspective and that questioning aspect, even about the way the work works, right? Like,
mm,
is this the way that we do things? I
mm.
actually have suggestions about how to do this differently. And I think that's why you're starting to come in as an expert on thought leadership process and creating these kind of things, because
Mm,
teams know that they can come to you and say, I've got like maybe this messy thing that I'm thinking of, or we have lots of ideas, and you can help them refine it. You can help them get it to a place where it feels cohesive and start to align with
yeah.
structure. So
And I think it's probably because I started as a novice. So it's
yeah,
almost like as I'm learning, I'm taking my own notes and cheat sheets. And then I'm so excited if it works. Like, I want to share it with the next person that's joining the team so that they get like a accelerated start. So they don't
yeah,
have to figure it out like I had to figure it out.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So,
And that's some of your genius, right? Which is taking complex ideas and like simplifying them and helping, people
mm,
understand them too. So
mm.
anyways, that came up as a thing, since you're thinking, what am I doing now? But I really believe that you can own that you are a thought leader on thought leadership, because you are in the
Mm,
prime place to be that
mm,
kind of
mm,
expert as
mm,
well.
mm,
Okay. So let's talk about teams
mm,
and managing a team. And I think for many people who are listening, sometimes you're new to a role, and you might have a small team or you might have a large team, but you're wondering, like, how do I actually lead when I
mm,
might be learning myself? Or I would, I'm trying to make these switches into kind of more of an elevated role where I'm doing more of that leadership work, but I still have to bring on all of these people who might not know. And I still have to get into the weeds a lot with the work and actually get things done. So, how do you think about leadership, specifically being new to a role? And then also separately, this idea of how do you balance the doing versus the
Mm.
leading?
When entering into a new role or a new team, the first thing that comes to mind in the context of leadership is self-leadership. So I tend to, I always go in and I tend to feel like I am the let's say the most junior person on the team. And um, I have found that it makes me create safety when I go in and I show the initiative. I try to get to know the team members regardless of level, even if I am supposed to be the project leader. I spend a substantial amount of time having one-on-one connections with my team members, because I feel like it serves the relationship, and it also serves to understand the dynamics between two human beings before things get stressful, and to
Yeah.
also build an understanding with each other. Because here's an area where I own that I have evolved, right? So I've led much larger teams in prior roles in my 15 years, doing client facing work. And if I look back, I'm not necessarily proud of some of the ways that I led teams in the past.
Yeah.
And as I started to question what I stood for and do this much deeper work, just as you mentioned, it's the Strengths Finder, right? So the 6 years apart that I took it, my first Strengths Finder was achiever was number one, and empathy was like in the mid-teens. And the second time I took it, empathy was in like relator, and empathy was in the top three, and achiever was in like the middle, right? So I
Yeah.
think there's been a huge shift in what I value. I think I've always valued good leaders, empathetic leaders. I think I'm more attuned to how to be one now,
Yeah.
right? And being one requires a lot of thinking on behalf of the other person, always always assuming that the person is doing their best. Like I think about the
Yes.
ways that I feel sometimes when I am struggling and I put a piece of work out there, and I genuinely feel like I know it's not quite there yet, but it was sort of my best. And sometimes it's hurtful if it's not acknowledged as such, right? So whenever
Yeah.
I am working with people who may or may not have the same experience, or just even the format of something, a work product coming to me is not quite aligned with what I thought I asked for, um, I think that I genuinely feel like, okay, this person is doing their best, and there must be something that I haven't communicated as
Yeah.
clearly, or they actually have a very unique and different perspective that I should consider. And from that place, um, again, going back to the one-to-one connections, because there will always be situations where something just has to get done. And I think
Yeah.
I kind of know what needs to be done. And there's an amount of coaching and showing and doing, but at some point it's like, okay, time for me to get into the weeds. Time for me
Yeah.
to package it together and just get it done so that the team can say that we've achieved the goal or the timing thing. But in general, I would try to lead by example and also lead by showing. Like I would just say, look at this is my cheat sheet. This is how I think
Yeah.
about it. These are like the hacks on PowerPoint slides to make it align better. I know it could take a long time, but if you just held down this key, it's like a second.
Yeah.
So I like to share hacks with my team.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love that because I think for many folks, they think like, oh, the high level is better, but actually getting very specific to like little tiny things that they can be doing is really the benefit, because sometimes when people say, just, do it faster, they're like, what, you need me to like move my hands faster or like try to process this thought faster? When you're
Mm.
like, no, actually, what I did was take out like 10 of the 20 steps.
Yeah.
And these are the ones specifically you could, right? And then when people hear and see that detail, they're able to be like, oh, I could totally do that. Or I get like, I'll buy into nice alignment and aesthetics because I can definitely,
Yeah.
spend time doing it because it doesn't take that long.
Yeah.
So I love that. And I think that, what you're also saying about assuming positive intent about people is
Mm.
such a huge key. Sometimes we resent the people that work with us
Mm.
because they don't do it the way that we would have done it. And I think that
Mm.
for you, that empathy really helps you start to see that. To speak about StrengthsFinder, so I'm just saying on behalf of StrengthsFinders, you're not supposed to take it again for different results, but
Mm.
it's supposed to be the same thing always. But at the same time, what I have noticed is that if you have some pretty big life changes or inner work and breakthroughs that you've made happen with your own life, you might end up seeing something very different than when you were at a very different place in your life. You value different things. You might
Yeah.
start to realize that certain aspects are more important than others. And then I know for you, it was such a neat reflection to
Yeah.
see how that's showing up, because what I've noticed, because we took like a break, right, in our
Mm.
coaching and then we came
Mm.
back, I even noticed a difference in how you
Mm.
were between the
Mm.
first time versus the second time.
Mm.
And so much more of that kind of groundedness that you
Mm.
value and you
Yeah.
connect with was the way you were versus you were the way you were
Yeah.
showing up in the Strengths Finder before. Right. And
Yeah.
so it's almost like it's just very interesting how we don't even see how drastically life can change if we decide to.
Yeah. Like, yeah, the inside, I feel like I'm a different person. Now, I
Yeah.
did ask my husband this question just the other day. Do you feel like I'm a different person? And he's like, no, you're the same person that does these things when I met you. So I realized that the inner work, I think, is sometimes invisible, and maybe it's I'm sure it manifests in different ways to him, but in positive ways, hopefully. But I think the biggest difference is the internal, right? Like
Yeah.
the internal change. The Previously, I probably also wanted to be the same leader that I am today, but it took more hard work because I had
Yeah.
to apply self-control on the feelings, right?
Yeah.
That I knew were not appropriate of an empathetic leader.
Yeah.
And now I'm just empathetic. So,
Yeah. It's who you
right?
are.
It's who I am. Yeah. And so it feels easier.
Yeah.
Um,
Such an
yeah.
identity shift. Okay. So let's talk about health, because your health has been a priority for you. I think for many folks, as you burn out
Mm.
or as you start to see how, and I'm telling you, this is rampant across achievers, that the way we process stress, the way that we process all of these, feelings that we have and the thoughts that we have that are uncomfortable takes a toll on our body, and it does have an effect. So for some, it shows up as gut issues or maybe hormonal things that are going on. For others, it could show up with just, maybe not moving their bodies as much the way that they want to, or overworking themselves, or overeating, or over drinking, or overdoing pretty much anything
Yeah.
in hopes to kind of alleviate the symptoms of a deeper underlying problem, which is the way you're thinking and the way you're managing emotions, or how you feel about the work you're doing, the life that you're living. So how did you made some pretty big changes and are super healthy now. How did you start
Yay.
embodying some of those some of the healthiest habits that you currently have today?
It's a great question and a huge question. And I'm reminded there's a few when I listen to some habit changing self-help thought leaders out there. I'm reminded of the saying that when you see someone who's already at a certain level of achievement, you can't
Yeah.
copy their habits in that moment because that's not what they look like when they were starting. Right. So
Yes.
I've gotten to a point where I can very happily now say that I have reached a certain level of consistency and confidence. And, in terms of the now, it's like I always prioritize getting a movement routine in, and I happen to really found enjoyment in doing group classes. So
Yeah.
where I follow an instructor or I am lightly coached, whether it's a 25-minute hit session down the street or across the road, doing a spin class. Somehow it was really hard to start any of those, but as with anything, coaching myself to just show up. I think that's one of the things about the instructor-led stuff. It's like, okay, this is really hard. I already made a decision that I'm going to get up today and go there. I'm just going to just follow that decision through. I'm not going to think about it. I'm just going to show up.
Yes.
Has kept the consistency that I am having now, where obviously having done this for months and months now, over a year, then my body gets used to it, and so it feels good. Or even when I'm sore, I can go back and do active recovery as it relates to exercise. But I would say in the beginning, when I was, feeling bloated, like low energy, was using both food and alcohol for soothing stress or coping with negative emotions.
Yeah.
In that state, what started to build the momentum for change was, again, I had already collected voices and ideas, even from you, right? It's like, I think years ago you had said you made that one decision that just let all the decisions go. Like every day you're just going to move for 30 minutes or whatever. Like I
Yeah.
held that in my mind. I understood it. I never did it. I didn't do it for like 3 or 4 years,
Yes.
but it was an idea. It was a
Yeah.
seed planted, and it took a long time to take root. So there was like examples like that, not just from you and from others, but also, tiny habits, atomic habits. There's books out there that
Yeah.
just say like, just do, like, it sounds really funny to say just, 2 minutes, put on your shoes. You don't have to go out for the run, but you have to put on your shoes. Right? It sounds like silly small step things. My version of that was I just had to go downstairs and walk around the block. I would put
Mm.
in and I would always stack it with something that I really wanted to do. So I would really want to listen to an audiobook. I really, really want to listen to a podcast. So
Yeah.
I would put the thing that I wanted to change with something that I really wanted, which leads me to say that um, I think the biggest game changer in this space is to
Yeah.
realize it's following positive emotion. It's like the willpower thing does not work in the long term. It's
Yeah.
like what keeps me doing the healthy things, whether it's eating better, sleeping more, is because I have high energy the next day. And then I
Yeah.
get to do the thing that I want to do, which is go out for a beautiful hike with friends, or like, get to go to the gym, or whatever it is I wanted to do. And that really helped me build more momentum.
Yeah. I love
Yeah.
that. I think of,
Yeah.
for people who are used to discipline, you
Yeah.
rebel at a certain point against it, which is very
Yeah.
interesting. It's like you swing back and forth. If you're someone who's highly disciplined and you get to a point where you don't love your life in certain aspects anymore, sometimes we try to like project the discipline because it feels like along the same flavors of I'm just making myself again do more
Yeah.
things again that don't feel like they're great.
Yeah.
But we always have to be way more precise when we actually think about change. And it's not about going completely in one direction or completely in another. It's usually somewhere in between. And so you being able to say, okay, well, I don't love this but I'm not going to make myself do it in a punishing way is
Yeah.
huge, right? I always think of it as like desire before discipline. Like you want to have that
Mm.
like imaginary future that you're like, this is so neat. But then you also have a part where you're like, and I just can't think anymore. Like just stop, like be a robot today
Yeah. Yeah.
for like I did spend time. I spent lots of time thinking about it, right? Like when we were coaching or we're working together and I was in that frame of mind that makes my best decisions from that prefrontal cortex, I made that decision. And now I'm not in my prefrontal cortex when I'm waking up, when
Yeah.
I'm feeling tired, when it's at the end of the day, whatever it is. And that's when I just need to almost become the robot and not think and execute what I said, but always towards
Yeah.
something, right? That you actually are really interested in or with something that makes it more fun. Because you always want to
Yeah.
grow, right? What is pleasurable?
Yeah.
You don't want to be like, and then I have to do like 30 more minutes of this. And you're just like, no. Versus, oh, that 10 minutes was fun and somewhat pleasurable because I added some nice things to it. And then I wouldn't mind doing it for a little bit longer.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And that the word embody is the right one, right? It's like I can imagine feeling good, uh, doing healthy things, but until I feel it for myself and
Yeah.
stack it with the experience, it will always just be a thought. Like, and I think maybe whether it's like reading or vision boards, maybe that's part of the benefit is to for the people who are not quite ready to take the first step, but like give them something to hold on to um, in their imagination as they try to build their own experience muscle around it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I
You know?
always thought about that identity of like a fit person, and people are like, oh, that's like someone else, right? It's not me. But I almost thought of it as like a point in time so that you don't drag all the years that you weren't moving into it
Yeah.
and all the years that you were moving into it. You're just like, I'm a fit person because today I did things that were healthy for my body. And that
Yeah.
could mean rest,
Yeah.
just as an
It's true.
FYI for those that might
Yeah.
not believe that.
Yeah.
But that could mean rest, right? Everyone has different place of growth. Some people push a little too much and they need to learn when to scale back and
Yeah.
feel that that's not a failure. But for others, it's maybe coming back to the thing,
Mm.
even though yesterday they didn't, right? So
Yeah.
I kind of always think of it as, yeah, sure, you already are a fit person. If today you can make a plan or do something that helps you feel more connected to your body, and you don't have to worry about how fit you have been or how fit you haven't been, but like each day you get to start over essentially
Yeah,
with that.
another thing you remind me of is like for years, I would go through phases of black and white, a black and white approach to health, right? So I would get
Yeah.
fit, for example, for a trip, or I
Yes.
would cut out alcohol for Lent, right? I would just do the thing to prove that I can do the thing, but it
Yeah.
was never with this mindset that I have today, which is I want every day to feel good. Like I want every day
Mm,
like I have something where it doesn't feel like I need to grit my teeth for 21 days and then I go back to like and then I feel
yeah.
bad and I go back and grit my teeth, right? So that took years for me to get to a point where I decided that's going to be what I want. And then it took months to build the toolkit around it, including I will give a big shout out to Prolon and yourself for getting me onto Prolon. Like I felt like that was a
Yeah.
huge. I followed their protocol for 3 months and like got to know a bit more about fasting. And um, I, I don't know if it's true or not. I didn't go and look at my cells, but I like even if it's placebo effect, I feel like oh I've rejuvenated my cells. They're happier now.
Yeah.
You have a new body. And
Yes. Yeah.
so mm,
I love it. And I think it's for many folks, it's taking away that outer lens of
mm,
themselves and their bodies and how it looks for other people versus like, how do I feel about myself as a person.
Mm,
I don't feel shameful about my habits anymore because I feel that they're healthy or sustainable. Like I don't feel like I'm dieting. I feel like,
yeah.
I did this reset protocol because there's some great clinical trials out there or studies
Yeah.
about what it does for, your cells.
Yeah.
Or I want to try it because it seems interesting, but I know that I'm doing things in a much more mindful, sustainable way, right? Where there's no, huge peaks or valleys, but more of just like, oh, this is
Yeah.
just who I am. Like one thing doesn't make or break me.
Yeah. Mm.
Yeah. Okay. So you have already been and are still transforming your life. We're going to work together for the next year again through the, spiritual achiever coaching program. And I'm going to see you in Sedona as well.
Yay.
So if people are looking to transform their life, what is some advice that you have for them?
Yeah, so I think I have a few to mention in hindsight was really helpful to me. The first one we touched on in the beginning is maybe reflecting on the simple question of where are you saying yes when actually your body or some part of you is saying no, and that didn't feel good. Like where is
Yeah.
that potentially happening? Um, could be a big clue. Um, then the other thing also related to health, and this is something that is from part of my personal journey, is if something keeps on coming up for you as something that you question as a problem, really look at it, right? It
Yeah.
could be that for me, it was my relationship with alcohol. Like
Yeah.
I just knew for the size that I am, for the frequency in which I decided to drink, whether it's for celebration, stress relief, or to sleep, or whatever it is, like it was that one thing that I just didn't feel like I didn't feel good. I didn't feel good like always feeling like I needed the next glass of wine or the next
Yeah.
cocktail, even though my body was so used to it that I could handle it, and I could
Yeah.
function. I was very highly functional.
Yeah.
Um, but every time there was some sort of reflective thing where it asked, what's the one thing you'd want to change? Or what's the one thing in your way? And it kept on being that thing. Like, it would be like, I should go to the gym more, but I have no energy because I drink, and I don't feel
Mm,
good. Right. So it's like,
yeah.
if that's some there, if everyone might have something else, but for me, it was that first domino that at some point I decided I just couldn't ignore it anymore. And so one of the big
Yes.
changes that I made last year was just go basically 9 to 10 months just taking it out, cutting it out completely, and just seeing how I would show up and how my body reacted and how my health would change without having that substance, as part of my lifestyle. And I think, you know, get clear on that one thing is probably, and start with that, just that one thing might be
Yeah.
another piece of advice. Then the final one, I've realized it's kind of that zooming in and out of myself has been helpful, and maybe it will be helpful to others. It's like when I feel really stuck, I
Yeah.
find that it's helpful to look outside, whether it's asking for help or listening to some content or going to Instagram and finding some inspiring quote. Um, and I'm reminded of that quote from Charles Maxey, the boy, the mole, the boy, the mole, the fox, and the horse. The asking for help isn't giving up;
Yes.
it's refusing to give up. So going outside when I feel stuck. But also, this is something that I'm working on, is go inside. Sometimes go
Yes.
inside for the answer.
Yeah.
And trust, like that self-trust, as you say, like when things feel out of control, maybe turn inside and do like a meditation or a yoga nidra or a, non-sleep deep
Yeah.
rest protocol, like 25 minutes, I find is just enough time to reset my nervous system or at least calm it
Yeah.
down. Which maybe a small final point is listen to your body, which is really hard to do I think for a lot of achievers who might have started to disconnect, like they're very
Yeah.
mental, like they're always in their heads. We're always in our heads. So we
Yes.
disconnect from the discomforts of the body and we kind of assume that the body will just run on its own, or we're blessed with good genes and therefore it just continues to run until it breaks. But once you start to hone in to the body signals, I think it'll be easy to tune into what feels good. Like you'll know when it doesn't feel good and come back.
Yes. Oh, so good.
Yeah.
Okay. So much, I think has changed for you, and in the positive, that I think that there really is a feeling, at least that I have for you, which is like the world is your oyster, right? You're like just getting started. And you're in this really amazing place. And we've talked about it before. We are like, what if it's okay for it to be this good? Which I'm telling people that you will get to that point. If you don't feel that way, it's okay. But you will get to that point where you feel like I have less problems, quote unquote, problems to talk about than I do more questions about how do I feel even more miracles and synchronicities showing up in my life? How do I feel more of that like practical magic start to appear everywhere? Like those become different questions because so much more of your life feels settled, right? Like you have the capacity to think about it in that way. So for some of you, you might be like, oh my gosh, right? Like like she's exercising every day, like has this amazing job and partner and baby, and seems like a great leader and a nice person. It is available, right, to everyone. And there will be times when you think you're like the only person out there who hasn't found their way yet or isn't on that part of the journey where they feel so expansive. But know that, just like we were talking about before, when we didn't get into the places we thought, those were just the catalysts and the starting point for, awakening, maybe another little nudge. And one thing I always love to think about is that your chances never run out. It never runs out. They will always be there. And so we can just literally in the next breath, next moment, next day, even if you're having that breakdown moment where you're huddled on the floor, which I think many of us have one of those moments. The floor seems to really resonate with a lot of folks. Like how much low physically can we even go when we're feeling that way mentally or energetically? But then realizing like, okay, there's only up from here. Really, there's only up from here. So with that mindset, when you think about your career, and you have done quite a few different things, even if you've been at the same organization, and the typical person, and you've already made some of these changes for yourself, typically changes their career like 5 to 7 times in their lives. And this from me, that I firmly believe that you don't have one happy ending. There are many ways for you to feel purposeful and have meaning and to feel abundance and wealth and health and all the relationships in life. So when you think about that for yourself, what else do you see yourself pursuing or being interested in if you think about the different passions that you have?
This is a super fun question. So the caveat is I assume that I will be paid in some way.
You will be paid. No one will be mad at you. You will be paid.
I'll have gainful income in some way, or I will get a huge inheritance because my dad has a big company that IPOs or whatever it is, right? Whatever happens. So these are the things that are just like dream, assuming I can afford it.
Yeah.
there is something about me and piano specifically. I don't know what it is. Ever since I was 4 or 5, it was the thing that I really wanted for myself. It became rolled into the typical Asian expected, all
Yeah.
Asian people in, 'cause at least in the US, immigrant families seem to play the piano. This is not the case in Asia,
Yes.
by the way. But
Yeah.
but
Oh, interesting. Okay.
yeah, like nobody plays. I mean,
Yeah, but they're all
not
like, what are you doing?
they play sports, but no,
Yeah,
but
exactly.
growing up around me. So that I didn't realize this, but actually some of my friends assumed that it was because I was told I had to do it. But no, piano was a thing that I really wanted. So if given an opportunity, it's assuming I have other income. I do want to get to a place where I am able to share music of any kind that is
Ah,
moving to somebody, or especially at least to myself in a public space. So that's one thing. I don't think it's impossible, but it will require work. So I'm putting it out there.
yeah.
The other one I also mentioned, kind of combining that idea of coaching, but also with the parenting aspect, not making it, I do notice my energy there. Like I enjoy sometimes sharing on social media a challenge I might have had with my daughter and how I would approach it. And that feels
Yeah.
good to share. But I also see some very inspiring parenting coaches and the amount of content that they put out there for making it a career. I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm not sure I'm there yet to think about this all the time, but I love the idea. I think it's a huge area where there's still so much opportunity for this generation of parents, our generation of parents and beyond, to recognize that children are just full human beings. They have their wisdom in different ways, and if
Yeah.
you could nurture that, I mean it, and make sure that they're emotionally supported and resilient, they will become the next generation of emotionally secure adults. So that's one thing that is on my mind. Related to that is I do really enjoy thinking about the brain.
Yes.
Psychology, which is more
Yeah.
applied, neuroscience, which is more kind of chemical scientific. Don't know if that's going to happen in my lifetime because it requires a lot of schooling, I assume, but you never know. Like in the metaverse with lots of different ways to learn training stuff, maybe we can
Yes.
all pick something up like that. And the final thing, which came up during a game with a friend, that the question really was, if you could be paid to do anything, what would you do for money? And I think I do have a knack for writing. I haven't found a fictional voice or any true motivation to write something non-fictional, but I would love
Yeah.
to write an anthology of other people's stories. Like if I could be paid to do anything, I would just go around and like, tell me your story. How did you meet your husband? Or, how did you get to where
Oh,
you are? And go around asking about people's life stories and documenting it for them, maybe. Maybe that could be monetized. Like I will
yes.
turn this into something that you can pass down as a family keepsake. So
Yes.
that's my final
Oh, that's so good.
career
I know
idea.
we've talked about some of these, but I have now so many ideas for you. I keep getting like the chills with each. I was like, oh, yes.
There you
So
go.
see all of this happening. I firmly believe because I did this work and I went back and I looked and I was like, I did almost every single one of these things. So I'm
Ooh,
just
I need to dream
telling,
bigger.
I am telling you guys that like the thing I was talking about in the beginning, like when you go deep and you start to really question and think, we think it's just this light little idea that comes through, but you have to know that not everyone has the same thoughts about things. Not everyone has the same desires. Not everyone has the same kind of interest. So there's a reason that you have it. There's a reason it keeps coming back. And you'll find if you go back and look and you're one of these type of people, which I'm sure you are if you're listening, you've probably written some of this stuff like multiple times across your life. So it's not
Mm,
like a random fictional idea. It might be the how is maybe a
mm,
little bit more unique this time, but it's pulling together these themes that have always been very interesting and important to
mm.
you. And so you're going to find that if you actually go there and spend more of your time in those places, thinking and feeling into and getting curious about it, it starts to occur and it starts to manifest, especially like if you're actually doing the work to pursue things as well. But I've gone back and seen, oh my gosh, I thought I was just doing a random exercise when I started doing this for myself. And it wasn't, right? And that's some of like the personal strategy work that we do together. So we'll do some of that on the retreat as well. But okay,
Very
so
cool.
Excited, very
Yes.
fun. And lastly, so that we wrap up with everyone, I always want to ask people this question, which is, what do you think you're here to learn? And what do you think you're here to share? What's your thoughts on that?
My current answer is I'm here to learn to develop kind of a deep appreciation, or you can call it love, on the most extreme side of the spectrum, but deep appreciation for just what is, right? So it's the now, the present, even if it could be messy sometimes, no matter what it is, that I don't want to escape from it, that I want to, because life is so precious, so short. It's
Yeah.
like it's filled with all these sensory things, some pleasurable, some very painful, but I recognize how precious it is. And so I'm not trying to get to the end faster. So how do I make it deeper is just to accept exactly as it is and not like numb myself when something's painful, but just kind of accept so that I can live deeply. I think that's what I'm here to learn, be part of this existence. What I'm here to share, I think there's a deep theme in my life is just kind of connection with human beings. I think if being connected with me through any sort of friendship or any kind of social interaction brings any part of like joy or insight or whatever, I feel like, or if I give some advice that might be helpful, or we enjoy a laugh together, whatever it is, I feel like that is all I can share. It's my presence and myself. So not very big, not like I want to change the world, but I guess I do change the world in small ways, at least for like my family, maybe.
Yes. Yeah. And that is for many of us, this question really embodies our purpose. So if you're not sure, like, well, what is my purpose? You think about like, what are you actually here to learn? What do you think you're here to share? And then when you think about those questions, it doesn't look like work, right? We talked about this, Jenni and I, a little bit before we hopped on. It's not like an accomplishment.
Yeah.
But that is the whole idea of spiritual achievement, which is saying, what is the intangible? And how do I value that more than the tangible? And realize that, like, honestly, that is the source of where it all comes from, too. Like, so with that, you will do amazing work, right? Be whoever you need to be and want to be in your relationships and in your family life and your professional life. But it's a theme that will then permeate everything. Like if I'm accepting people as they are, what kind of leader would I be? If I'm accepting stressful situations as they are, how would I handle things? And how would I be even more successful in a lot of the places where we fall down, right? And then how much more would I enjoy my life and the process, right, as well? If I literally am like, this is amazing. This is amazing. This is amazing.
Yeah.
I love this too. Even, right, with the not so amazing things and having space for being like, these parts
this feels really crappy right now, but I know I will get through it. This too shall pass.
This too shall pass. All right. I love it. Okay. So if people wanted to connect with you or find you on social media, where can they do that?
I'm definitely on Instagram. I think I'm searchable. Just my handle, I think, is just Jenni Lai without a space.
Yes. All right. So you want to spell that out for them? We could put it in the show notes too.
Yeah. JENNILAI.
Okay.
Yeah, it's at
All right.
JenniLai.
You
Yeah.
can learn all about Jenni and her, travels,
There you
kids,
go.
all the things. Okay. Thank you so much, Jenni. This was so good. I think this was really helpful, hopefully, for a lot of folks. But I know that you are
Mm,
an inspiration in all of the ways that you just made decisions and showed up and really got super brave about opening yourself up to the unknown and just being open to discovery. And I think that as a result, your confidence has just gone through the roof, but in a really grounded way where you're still interested and interesting and learning about like the
mm.
world around you, the people around you. So amazing. I'm so glad we got to share a little bit of your magic with
Yeah.
everyone out there. All
And
right.
thank you, May, as well, for all of your unconditional support over the years and your friendship.
Uh,
It's coaching is one of those things. It's like a good coach will make you feel like some of the decisions are your own,
yeah.
right? But actually, I think your impact and your effect is kind of just woven into the everyday. And so I'm so glad to, have this opportunity to share and yeah, so glad to know you.
Oh, thank you. Same here. Oh, I'm
Mm.
going to give you virtual hugs right now and see each other
I
very
reel one
soon,
in
I'm
Sedona.
sure. Yes, exactly. I'm so
There you go.
excited. Oh, this is the best.
All
All
right.
right.
Okay.
Thank you. Bye.
All right.
All right. Well, wasn't that amazing? I loved that conversation. If you want to join us and continue to have these kinds of conversations, you will love Spiritual Achiever Coaching. So you can learn more by scheduling a consult at www.mayemson.com/contact. And you can get on in, join the fun, learn all about how you too can have similar kinds of transformations and the magic that is in store for you as well. I can't wait to see you inside. If you're listening to this and if it resonates with you and you feel it in your body, then this is for you. Love you, my friends. I hope you have an amazing week, and I will talk to you next time. Thanks so much for joining us this week on Own Your Best Life. Make sure to subscribe to the show on iTunes or wherever you listen to podcasts so that you'll never miss a show. And while you're at it, can you please rate and review on iTunes? I would so appreciate it. Share it with a friend, take a screenshot of it, and tag @MayEmson. This helps continue to get the word out. For more show notes and resources, check out www.mayemson.com. You'll have all the links to everything you heard here today. Thanks so much for listening. It's time to own your best life.